Welcome to this presentation, Healthcare Facilities Leadership, HFL, HFF, and HFT Credentials, Advancing Healthcare Facilities for the 21st Century, Owensboro Community and Technical College. I wanted to give a little history as to how the program actually started here at OCTC. At the time that the American Society of Healthcare Engineers was looking for a college to start a program, actually they've been looking for quite some time, I was told as many as 10 years to get a college to start a program, but there wasn't a perceived need, or nor was there the ability to commit students to any particular college and university. And so they were looking, but a few years later, apparently, the executive director of the facility here in Owensboro, who also happened to be on the board of the community college, approached the college with ASHE and expressed an interest in the college and would start a program. The college at that time just started getting into online education, and they decided that online might be a good medium to develop healthcare facilities leadership and management. So they gave it a go, and that was about 2013, I believe, 2012, 2013. What happened next was they put out to find somebody who would fill the position. I looked into the position, not thinking that I would take it, but I did definitely want to find out about it. I knew it was needed. I was heading to another facility in Virginia. I was the president and board member and founding member of the Virginia Society of Healthcare Engineers in Virginia, and had planned to stay in Virginia. But after I looked into the position, it definitely was very interesting. And when I received the call that I would be the one that they wanted for the position, initially I wasn't sure if I would take the position. However, 2 or 3 things happened that really confirmed that I should jump into the position. A lot of my peers were telling me they thought I would be really good at this because of the work that I'd done in Virginia. So I took the position, and that's a little history how it started here. That's a little history how I arrived here. You know, I love little sayings that seem to, kind of encompass concepts. And this one by Mickey Mantle. For those of you who may not know who Mickey Mantle is, you're not sports fans or baseball fans, or it's possible that obviously as generations move on, people may not know historical, if you will, legends. But if you don't know, Mickey Mantle was a famous, legendary baseball player in the early 20th century who one would consider being the consummate professional, someone would consider being, again, the best. And we still talk about him in circles. So obviously he had staying power 100 years later to be considered, one of the best that ever played. But he made this comment: "It's unbelievable how much you don't know about the game you've been playing all your life." And this actually really does support a lot about the HFL program. One of the sayings you'll hear me say, or if you're around me long enough, I'll say it, and that is the greatest part of what there is to know is what you don't know that you don't know. And I think that as you peel back the layers of healthcare facilities, you'll just find out the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and how little bit you do know about something you've been doing for many years. Some facts about the OCTC HFL program. It was established in January 2014. It was 100% online courses. A self-proctored no-cost college readiness test, first in the nation to trial a company called EdReady. Because of the national scope of the program, we were having a difficult time getting folks tested for entrance placement for English, reading, and math. And this program did trial a national program. We were the first ones for the company to trial it, that is now rolling out throughout the system in the country. So HFL, because of our presence nationally, actually got it started. So I think, as time goes on, if you hear more and more about this product, EdReady placement testing, it started right here with HFL. Previously accredited college credits accepted. We have courses built around the CHFM core pillars of planning, design, and construction, codes, maintenance and operation, and management. We have students from the majority of the states. Hopefully someday I'll be able to say we have students from every state in the country. Experiential credits, specifically for management in the AAS program. Sometimes we have folks that come into the program that have many, many years of management. Actually, HFL 100 is a program that if you have essentially at least 3 accreditation surveys under your belt and you served in the capacity of the safety officer, you very likely can experientially credit out of that program. CHFM step test is available for up to 9 additional credits for the 3 100 level courses, HFL 130, 140, 150. And we've had several people step test out of several of those classes. Free application process, low tuition, no out of state. It's the same for everybody wherever you come from. The faculty and instructors are healthcare facility professionals and experts. 90+% of the students that graduate or enter this program enter the HFM profession, which I think is may sound like, well, of course, but a lot of programs that are out there doing a little bit of HFM or undergrad HFM do not have very many of those folks come into our profession. They end up going to the contractors and the vendors. The HFL program, pretty much everybody are working in or go into the healthcare facility management profession. And I'm really proud of this, and hopefully this will stay this way for a long time, but it could change, of course. And that's 100% first-time CHFM pass rate for students obtaining HFL credential. So for those getting the HFL diploma or the HFL associate's degree, we've had great success with folks taking the CHFM. Why an academic credential for healthcare facilities? Well, succession planning. The need is great and it's growing. It's something that continues to be talked about. It's going to be that way for at least, I'd say at least another 10, maybe 15 years, maybe forever for that matter. The industry has become increasingly complex. The industry continues to become corporatized with academic credential requirements. Again, as you are no longer able to go down to the HR office or to the administrator that runs your hospital in your community, your town, and now you have to go online and you have to send an application to some corporate headquarters in some state. Very often they filter people in or out just purely on credentials. Focused healthcare trained and informed facility personnel. Again, very specifically, there really is very little training and education that's didactic and credential driven. And didactic being, instructed layer by layer by layer, where you are responsible for the reading and the test and the writing and the, it's almost like the industry is filled with a lot of professional development, a lot of seminars, a lot of conferences. But unfortunately, you have a bunch of people in a room, and they say that really most people only they hear and remember about 10, maybe 15 or 20% of what they hear when they go to these conferences. When you do didactic training, it's probably the opposite. You remember about 80% when you're really reading it and studying it for yourself. And we need something that's very focused, specific to our industry. Same thing comes with management and supervision. We need very focused training for management and supervision. They need to become content experts these days at all levels. It's an excellent way to grow and bring talent into the profession. Young folks need to see their growth pattern. They need to see steps. It's a great way to reach and grow people. Folks, if you can give them 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to growth, and it's planned and it's organized and it's layered, after 3, 4, 5 years, you can develop somebody to become a very strong healthcare facilities person. And this is a great way to do it versus fire and fury, which has really been the old way of doing it. And there really is a need to standardize the profession across the country. It's very interesting if you stop to think a little bit that healthcare really exploded in this country in the 20th century in the 1950s and 60s, primarily because of something that you'll study in the HFL program, and that is there was a bill called the Hill-Burton Act. It was the 1950s, I believe, where there was funding put out there to expand hospital beds around the country. And there was this big explosion in healthcare, and a lot of construction went on. Unfortunately, there wasn't the people capital to fill those places. So you had all kinds of inconsistencies in the standard of healthcare delivery in the 50s and 60s and really truly even the 70s. And what happened was, because of that, 2 big things happened. One, accreditation exploded. The CMS came out and said, look, we need to have a minimum standard around the country. And at the exact same time, education exploded. You saw this great big growth in almost every discipline in education, whether it was nursing or physical therapy or laboratory or pharmacy or radiology or you name the discipline in healthcare. And there became all of this academic foundation being put in place, which really makes up a large part of healthcare today and a large part of, healthcare education today. So you saw this standardization that took place. However, facilities got missed in the process. And I like to think that we're now finally coming back around to it and putting it in place. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Just a little humor here. You might be a facilities person if you thought spring break was metal fatigue failure. Speaking of growing complexity, this has been used by Ashley and others for years, and for several years now. It's actually been expanded on, and we'll expand on it in a moment. But you look at the three major parts of the job, whether you're a manager or you're a technician, and it has changed dramatically. Technology, it's now simply put, you have to become engaged in technology. Whether it's our building automation systems, our computerized maintenance management systems, fire system, nurse call systems, phone systems, computerized aid draft, or some people use BIM, which is building information modeling systems. Again, our elevators or generators or chillers, and go on and on and on. The use of need to use computers, obviously putting work orders in. Most folks are walking around with some kind of a smart device to enter work orders, receive work orders. So a lot of technology out there that we're needing to adapt to. And then there's also codes and standards. And in the program, we'll talk plenty about this. But there's so many codes and standards out there we've always been responsible for. But these days, and really going forward, it's not just being responsible, it's being held accountable for. We're being held accountable for more and more and more, and it's expanding. And it's kind of interesting. We used to say that healthcare was the third most regulated industry in the world behind airline and nuclear, and I've been told more recently we are now number 2, I guess just behind nuclear. But that being said, we second or third, we're highly regulated. Operations and maintenance, which is really the core of what most people think that we do, but even then they don't even know what we do, because unless you do it, how do you know? And so outside of maintenance, folks think we pretty much just, fix a few things, do a few PMs, and, keep the lights on and the water running. But really, there's so much more. When it comes to risk assessments, it's the way we are driven now. The projects that we do is always ongoing and shrinking and expanding. We're always moving things around. Work order systems continue to be an issue. Doing work orders is one of the primary things we should be doing, along with preventive maintenance. And then infection control, it continues to grow as a responsibility. And life safety is a constant that we're becoming, again, much more accountable for. And then, sprinkler and fire system or some other operation and maintenance issues. You can go on and on with the boiler room, and go on with air handlers and filters and, light bulb changes, and on and on and on. So we have lots of responsibilities, but these are the three big cores, and it continues to grow in demand. Some things we rarely used to think of, and now has become another big facet of what we do, is the expansion of the outpatient facilities. They are now considered, pretty much fully healthcare facilities. So a lot of things apply that used to apply in hospitals, that apply in hospitals now. Back in the day, we used to call these buildings medical office buildings or business office buildings, mobs and bobs, and we did very little with them. We really pretty much, they were on their own, and the folks that were the manager or the director or even the secretary administrative person would to make sure things got done at those facilities. These days, we have to apply a lot of the same things like ICRA, infection control risk assessments, and PICRA, pre-construction risk assessments, above ceiling permitting, ASHRAE 170, which has to do with air ventilation, and ASHRAE 188 with waterborne pathogens, HIPAA, privacy issues, and HCAPS, there's all kinds of measurements about patient quality and care and service. Disaster planning, and there was a big expansion in that in 2017 that is now impacting every healthcare facility type. Environmental rounds, which were non-existent back in the day, are required to some degree, although environmental rounds themselves are no longer a regulatory requirement. Some type of system, knowing that you're looking at your buildings and facilities and evaluating them and risk assessing them is required. And again, things like active shooter. So, these are things we didn't used to think about. The environment has changed dramatically, and so the folks that take care of them have to grow with it. Healthcare facilities leaders' skill sets, again, it's pretty comprehensive. It takes a pretty mature person with a lot of experience and a lot of critical thinking to do the job. But you have to be good at technology and computer systems and project management and some of these other technologies, and then understanding convergence, how these things are all coming together. Being able to do reporting, analyze stuff and roll it up to a dashboard. Speaking in front of teams and in front of directors and managers and sometimes the board. Writing, got to be articulate, well summarized. codes and standards, compliance, financial management, run it like a business. Got to have customer service. Got to be critical thinkers. Always looking at things. What kind of risk is there, and need to apply an actual metric or a tool or a document that shows that you thought about it. Energy management has been big in our industry in recent years. Property management, which is growing, and I'm hearing is it going to become a new CHFM category because of the expansion to the outpatient buildings and the decentralization of healthcare. And that's the manager. When it comes to technicians, the skill sets are also quite broad. Again, you still got to know a lot of these technologies. You got to still be able to understand ICRA and PICRA and interim life safety measures and so on and so forth. I know some of these acronyms, you may not know these acronyms, but you will know them by the time you get through this program. These are the things we spend a lot of time on, these, understanding these and breaking them down, because in many cases, you are the ones driving them and making sure that they're getting done. Again, you got to be able to speak to building managers, doctors, nurses, vendors. Think about that outpatient environment. Large buildings, health plexes or surgical centers where, you may now be the technician, but you're also really a lead or a supervisor of that building. You are on your own. You may report to some central healthcare building or organization, but often, you have lots of hats and lots of responsibility with not lots of direct supervision. You got to be able to write and articulate and summarize. Again, you got to understand codes, standards, and compliance as a technician and be critical thinkers. And then there's like what I call the major pillars of healthcare that are unique to healthcare. You understand med gas. You got to understand life safety and emergency management. Basic ventilation, basic electrical, and energy management too. So you look at these skill sets. It really is become a complex environment. In fact, I have a saying that in the past, if personnel knew what you knew, they might take your job. But today, if personnel don't know a lot of what you know, you could lose your job. And I think that is really a major shift in what's happened, if you will, the last, let's say, 10, 20 years, is that you see this Internet of Things, free flow of information, where you no longer have to go to a person for information, nor does that person have to feel like they're the one that has to know everything. It's now being diffused amongst everybody. And we have a higher level of accountability, a higher level, we need to be critical thinkers and have access to information. So it really is becoming an effort where you can't just point to the manager or the director and say, well, that's their responsibility. It really is all of our responsibilities. Again, you might be a facilities person if everyone else on the Alaskan cruise is on deck peering at the scenery and you're still on a personal tour of the engine room. You also might be a facilities engineer if you comment to your wife that her straight hair is nice and parallel. Well, why earn an HFL, HFF, or HFT credential? There's several reasons, and this is just a couple of them. Increasing professional standing. It's really every profession. It's nice to be able to say that you've earned some measure of, minimal understanding that that you can talk about amongst each other and you can relate to with each other. It helps to really have that. It also promotion opportunities. I cannot begin to tell you the number of folks that while in this program and certainly after this program have had opportunities like they never could have had before because of the program and because of their knowledge and because of their engagement. I would say one thing that really changes going through the program is that your ability to relate to other people in the organization and engage in the organization automatically produces just this folks will look at you differently and talk with you differently, and you will engage and talk with them differently, and that gives us opportunities. Improved marketability goes without saying. Greater salary potential, a firm industry experience. Again, a lot of folks come to the program and they have a lot of knowledge. They bring a lot of knowledge to the program, and this is a way to validate that knowledge and build on top of it. And you see that in the program as people even sharing knowledge with each other, which is what I consider one of the other great parts of the program. Credentials to enter healthcare engineering profession. Again, I think there does need to be some kind of a minimum threshold that does validate that folks do have some common base knowledge coming into the profession. And also to be an early adapter to transforming and building a profession. We are still in the very early stages of this. I estimate there are probably upwards of 80,000 credentials that can be issued across this country in our profession. And today, we're way short of that. So we have a long way to go in building this profession. And you who are listening to this and coming in this program, you are absolutely truly an early adopter. In the first 10 years, that's the way it's going to be. There is a credential mandate that's been out there forever in healthcare. And if you think back to that time period where I said, healthcare education grew and hospitals grew and minimum education became an expectation. And all around us, we have people that have academic with practicals or practicums, laboratory experience that goes with it. You look at radiology and lab and surgical tech and pharmacy tech, sterilization techs, medical assistants. Now there's a role called M&A, which is a hybrid of like a medical assistant with a phlebotomist with a data entry person because they're small and they need to wear a lot of hats. But they all have an academic credential that then leads towards a certification. Then they have to maintain that certification. There's a list here, numbers of registered nurses at the time of this survey, nearly 3 million that are registered nurses that had education and then a certification, nursing assistants, home health aides, and you can go down this list. So all around us, there is this precedent of education tied with certification, tied with employment in the healthcare industry. And this is not to minimize any of these positions, but when I look at my years in healthcare facilities and I look at the complexity that's there and the growing complexity that exists, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, our world is very complex. Our responsibilities are very broad, and that we are very clinically involved. And when you think about how involved we are with the water and air and with med gas and the equipment, we are very clinically involved as well. We are part of the environment of care, the clinical environment of care. So, we just got missed, I would say. And I'd say that we probably should not have gotten missed, but we did. And, there's some benefits to healthcare academic credentialing. Improve regulatory awareness. I mean, you just have a clear understanding when you're walking down the hallway that you got to maintain that building, and you notice and see things that you just wouldn't notice or see otherwise. Improved accreditation goes right with that. Increased productivity and engagement. There have been poll after polls that when people are educated and they grow in their profession, they're much more productive and much more engaged. Improving infection prevention awareness, response, and engagement. Again, improved succession planning, improved career pathway, increased use of technology. Again, younger generation, we can now bring people in and develop them in a very standardized way and grow them up. More comprehensive healthcare facilities awareness and more qualified employees, hiring pool. Again, think about that. If folks across the country were trained in a minimum expectation, if you will, on common things that are related to healthcare specifically, and they were to come to you and say, I've earned this credential or that credential, you would have some level of awareness of their minimal understanding, and that would certainly help as you interview and as you look at resumes. What do they know? A lot of folks come in, they have very strong trade experience, but again, they may have very minimal and almost very often no healthcare experience, which is a big part of the job. Again, opportunity for rural facilities to grow their own. I think of the opportunity that because of the online medium that we can now reach to these facilities that are out there in rural Montana or Wyoming or wherever they might be, and if they have a good internet connection, we can now start bringing them in, and they can actually, while they're working full time, they can actually grow and learn and earn credentials, and they don't necessarily have to go to another facility or have come from another facility to do that. So lots of benefits of a credential requirement. Again, another lighthearted statement. You might be a facilities engineer or a facilities person if the salesperson at Best Buy can't answer any of your questions. So who are the faculty? Again, the program director and faculty for core classes consist of industry professionals, and they carry with them industry certifications experience. One of the cool things about this is the opportunity to actually employ and have a faculty and instructors who have been in the program now. So you'll have faculty now that have been through the program, and they are passionate and they are excited. They understand it, and they've been through it, and they want to see this program grow. So their peers. Very often, students reach out to their instructors. I have a number of students over the years that reach out to me and ask me all kinds of questions and references, and sometimes it's a code reference, sometimes it's just a management reference, sometimes it's a networking reference. So you have this great opportunity with your faculty to talk to people who are immersed and engaged in the industry. industry. We learn an awful lot from each other, and that's one of the cool things is you begin your network the first day you start in the HFL program, and it continues to go, I would hope, throughout your career and your lifetime even. Again, you might be a facilities engineer or personnel. If you think that when people are around you yawn, it's because they didn't get enough sleep. I can relate to this because I get pretty passionate about my profession. I get pretty passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure for some people it's maybe a little bit interesting, but for a lot of people, I've learned to temper and realize that they're not as interested in it as maybe I am. I want to end with this statement here from Eric Hofler. You see this off. I think I've had this on my email. Maybe by the time you're reading this, I've changed it as my closing statement. That is, in times of change, the learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And I love this statement for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, it speaks towards growing and professional education and academic development. We're in such rapid change right now, and I think we are be for a long time with the development of technology and the Internet of Things. That we have to keep learning, and particularly in this profession, it seems like every time we turn around, there's something else going on that we need to improve. We have some numbers out there when it comes to infection and when it comes to errors and mistakes in healthcare that are, by most standards, quite terrible. It's never good when someone dies of a healthcare acquired infection or gets a healthcare acquired infection. It's never good when someone dies of a mistake made in a procedure or due to some sort of a pharmaceutical error, delivery or something like that. And unfortunately, we have way too many deaths for both those reasons. And really, beyond those deaths, we have way too many people who get hurt, injured, or get an infection. We have a long way to go, and I have a feeling that we're going to be at this for quite a long time. And because of that, and because really we want to do more, better, good. That's another phrase I like to say is, our goal is to do more, do better, do good, and so we need to keep learning. We need to keep growing. We need to be engaged. We need to be part of the healthcare solution, from our perspective and from our position. So we really do need to keep learning. We do need to keep growing, and it's going to be good for our profession. It'll be good for the people around us. And if we're not learning, if we're not growing, I would say towards the very end of a career, that's fine. We're winding it out. We've learned enough. But when you have, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ahead of you, I don't think you can just sit and just expect to live off of what you learned previously. You really, especially in this profession. So I hope if there's one thing you take away from this, and that is, you're entering healthcare facilities, you need to become a consummate learner, team player, networker, person in this industry. I truly believe that the healthcare facilities program will be an asset to you, a benefit to you, and a resource to you for a lifetime. In the test, there is a question, and just to make sure you stayed with this presentation to the end, there's a question: what's the answer to the universe? And the number is 42. For those of you who are Hitchhiker Guides to the Universe fans or read the book, actually it was a radio show back in the 70s, and kind of a pop culture legend years ago. But if those of you don't know the story, you can go look it up. And those of you do, you know that the answer to the universe was 42. And while I myself don't subscribe to 42 being the answer to the universe, I do find it humorous. And I also wanted to put it in the test to make sure that, again, that you made it to the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I'm so glad you're here in the Healthcare Facilities Leadership Program.